All right, for our next live. All right, we'll see if you join. Um, okay, so just finished another session. This one is a little bit different than the typical where usually we will pick a specific behavior, right? It's like, hey, what do you want to start doing? Let me even back up. The process, it's like, hey, who's my ideal self? What is my value hierarchy? What do I value? And what's the order of that? Top value, make sure I do those, whatever. And then what are the behaviors that lead to that value? Do I do these things? Cool. Next one. Okay, hey, I do 3 of these 5, whatever it is. Okay, what's the top priority there? We make that behavior become part of us, right? Intention, behavior, habit, identity. That's our goal. And we want to make sure we're working on the top priority, right? So if something's not yet part of us, not yet habitualized and automated into our life, that's something really worth focusing on. And so typically we take that approach and it's a behavior like, hey, I want to start meditating. I want to start exercising regularly. I want to do yoga, something like that. But after a few sessions, this person has realized, I think there's something a little bit more important that I might be avoiding and that is a little more amorphous, right? A little less tangible. And of course, I like to caveat a lot of things like, I don't know if this is my expertise per se, but I still think we can get some value out of it and let's give it a go. Let's give it a whack. And so he basically wants to work on being more present in tough conversations. One, identifying, hey, is this the right time to have them? If not, let's make sure that we can calm, cool, collected, say, hey, this is not the right time. Let's figure out a space to do so we can have a productive conversation. So like that's the first bifurcation. And then if you are having the conversation, it's like get a little agitated, a little kind of like, I don't know, just heightened emotion. And it's difficult to have a productive conversation that way, right? And one of the things he says was, which caught me off guard, because to be honest, with this type of thing, because it is a little bit outside of my typical of behavior and the tangible behavior, I was like, I don't know if you're gaining value out of these sessions, like in my head. And he goes, I love these sessions because I feel like we get to that, I don't know, to the meat of it, even though it's not concrete, but it's that meat. It's important. It's the tough stuff. And we can still make it semi-tangible. So for example, what we did was, and I might have done a live on this last time, I'm not sure, but it's like that first one of, is this the right time? No. Okay. What are the things that we can say? What are the phrases? What do we want to do? What are the main ingredients? Acknowledge it's an important conversation I want to have with you. And then, but right now is not the best time. Let's do it at boom, X time and place. Again, quieting that Zeigarnik effect. I think we did go over this last time. So doing that, and he said it already came up that week, went very well, which is awesome because like he already got to put it in action, and that worked well. And then they ended up having the conversation the next day, which was great. And so today we worked a little bit more on that less tangible, which is in the moment of that difficult conversation. A couple hacks, tips, tricks, tactics, whatever you want to call them, that I shared with him because he said he has a hard time listening sometimes, talks a lot and like interrupts, which is totally normal. So that as one thing that he wants to change, we identified that. The approaches to doing so, one is, and I don't remember who it was, but it's amazing. I've used it myself, which is he's like, I would just in a meeting have a piece of paper and write DNT, DNT, do not talk, do not talk. I would just write that over and over and over the whole meeting, and everyone thinks I'm the best listener ever. But I'm just writing do not talk because it quiets that like desired inner chihuahua that just wants to bark out. It's like, no, just play again, back to the other videos, like placate that so that you can be present and listen. So that's number one. And then the second reframe that I offered forth, and I always try to say, hey, take, salt to taste. Like, I don't know if this is gonna work for you. This is what has helped me in the past in a similar scenario. And the one here is regarding determinism and free will. It's like, sometimes it's helpful to operate as if I and everyone else has free will. Sometimes it's more helpful to operate in the exact opposite way. It's all deterministic, right? I think we've talked about this in a separate video where it's the log coming, or sorry, I already gave away the punchline. There's a dude in a river chilling, gets knocked off, like wakes up, what the heck, out of the water, angry. Scenario one, it was kids playing. Laughs it off. Or maybe he gets angry at the kids. Sorry, I'm messing this up terribly. He gets angry at the kids, like, "Rah, rah, rah, why'd you do that?" And the other one, it's just a log floating down the river. He starts getting angry and goes, "Huh, like, funny universe." So same situation, completely different reaction. But we get to choose how we interpret both of those things, right? It's like we can always say, "Hey, that was the log," if it suits us in that conversation. Hard conversation to have. This person feels a certain way. That's making me feel a certain way. But I can just go, they didn't get enough sleep. They are tired. They were born in this place with these parents and this whole life trajectory. If I were born into that scenario, I would be the exact same person as they are. I would be interacting with myself right now in the exact same way. That, for whatever reason, maybe it doesn't work for you, but it does for me. It allows me to have so much self-compassion for that other person because you feel like you are that person, right? And this is a beautiful way where determinism allows you to have that kind of compassion. Whereas if you are to say, hey, it's like full agency, free will, like, fuck you, sorry for cursing. I don't know if that's allowed on my own thing. So that's all to say that there are still tangible ways that we can try to parse through what's happening and what are things that I can use to train. So he's writing down specific things that he can say or tell himself while, and I don't need to go into the nitty gritty, but he has an equivalent that he created of DNT, do not talk. So he's going to use that, right? He's like practicing training in your head and out loud so that when those moments come, they're more easy to occur, right? They happen with less limbic friction, as it were. Shoot, I don't know if I said this or not. I'm all over the place right now. That's okay. What's up, Jar? I think you're there. Ideal self as an ongoing journey. That is the title of this one, because that is the phrase that was said during the session that he's like, yo, I love these sessions with you because this is what I feel. And I remember, and like I'm intensely reminded of, is that I have so much work to do if I am to become my ideal self. And it's just being able to sit in that and be okay with where you are right now, knowing that you're crafting the process for becoming who you want to be. Now, I think this is a great area, even though we didn't talk about this at all in the client session, but just came to mind now, is balancing being and becoming. You can be yourself while still changing, right? You still add stuff to yourself, and maybe you get rid of some stuff too, but that doesn't mean you're losing yourself. You're becoming someone else. And if you can be okay, if you can become okay with becoming in the way that you're becoming, that's a beautiful thing. But we also have to be okay with being who we are in this moment, right? And I think, I've been going to therapy for the past few months, every couple of weeks, and a recent time I came to this realization of like, I think I'm being okay with being okay. Where I used to feel this pressure, almost like this inner anxiety drive to become better, and so much of my identity was wrapped up in the becoming, where I felt like, for whatever reason, I there was no specific moment that it shifted for me, but having that clarity of, I think I'm okay being who I am. I'm still becoming. That is always going to be part of me, but I'm not as attached to the becoming itself. It's much more, hey, who am I right now? I'm okay with this, and like there's so many paradoxes I find that are just increasingly difficult to manage, but seeing them is a first and necessary step, where it's like, you can be enough and a badass, to quote Marissa Peer and Jen Sincero, or kind of mush those together. It's like, you don't ever have to pick black or white. We are gray, and not only are we gray, but just like light, we are a point or a particle of light or gray, and we are a wave, right? We are in constant undulation, moving in different parts of this gray in different ways. And that's okay. Like, I think more and more of my identity is the moving itself. It's not just this. And I was talking with a friend earlier today, if this is you, Arian, this was you, where we were just chatting about. I'm so brain farting right now. I think I just looked. This is hilarious. What were we talking about? Arian, what were we talking about? Ego, identity. Yeah. I don't know. I'm all out. This is my 10-minute mark. I'm done. Oh God. Yeah, yeah. I remember all those things, but I just don't remember where my mind was just going. I think I was not necessarily in flow, but I was in a nice little stream, and then I looked and I was like, "Oh yeah, I see there's a 1 there," and then it just kinda threw me off. Um, okay, so I'll just do a nice little wrap up. Even though some things are intangible, like I used to love the idea of having a blueprint, like, hey, this is your value, these are the behaviors that make it up. That behavior can become a habit, can become your identity. That's all nice and clean and beautiful on paper. But life isn't always like that. It can be sometimes. And if we're in the place to take that approach, beautiful. But that's not the only approach. And I think finding the parts in life that are less tangible, that are the, hey, like I want to have better conversations or I want to be more present in this moment. It's like, well, there are so many different behaviors that could lead to that thing happening, which is a value. And that's why I changed it from value to behavior hierarchy in the course, because it made it seem simpler. It seems easier when you take that approach. But more and more of the value comes from working in the mud where things aren't clean. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel exact. But we can still take the exact approach in some ways. It's like, you know, in the opposite way of like death by 1,000 paper cuts, it's life by 1,000 little micro behaviors that will lead to that value. Unintended benefits of taking action towards an accomplishment. Yes, I remember that was also part, but not what I was thinking today. Yeah. I like the idea that I'm talking to people from the future, but in the past. So, like, hey, if you do watch this, let me know what types of things. Reach out to me at my email, my website, on this channel. Let me know what types of things you want me to talk about on lives, because I'll be doing more and more. So, yeah. All right, Jar. We'll chat later, eh?